Ahoy, hoy, heavy mag listeners. My name is Ez, and right now I have the pleasure of being joined by Dan and Ed from the mighty Ironstone. Hey, dudes, how are you both?
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you.
Yeah, doing really well.
That's great. So, you guys have recently released an EP titled The Place I Cannot Find. How did you find the process of this release compared with Prophecy, which was your previous release? And what different approaches did you take this time around?
That's a good question. I think with this EP, given that we'd already been through everything once before, we were much more deliberate in the process of creating it. And we knew roughly what to expect when it came to mixing, mastering, organizing the releases, video clips, single releases, distribution, that sort of thing. And so we were able to sort of write the songs with those processes in mind, and I think the whole thing was just a lot more like fluid, and it was more enjoyable. The first one was kind of scary. It's scary to put the first thing out.
And I guess like because you came through halfway through the last one, was that right, Dan?
Yeah, so I jumped on just as we had about six songs roughly, but as I joined, we wrote another three, which were just better than the other ones that they already had planned. So we just decided to grab the three best ones of the ones Ed already wrote, and yeah, the three new ones that I wrote, and then that's what now is Prophecy.
Tell me about the writing process then. Like, do you jam shit out and develop songs together as a band, or do the songs sort of come to the table fairly well written and complete by someone in particular? Like, do you all write, or is there a maestro behind the tunes?
Ed writes mostly, or he writes all the music at the start, just as like as bare bones as possible, and then he shows me, or I jump in and we vibe on what we like together, what parts go together, and what parts we sort of just dissect it and see what's best, and then from there, if we like that as a whole, then we jump on to melodies and lyrics. We sort of grab a pretty good base of that, and then we show the other guys and see what they think and see if they have any suggestions, and then we will just keep picking at it until we finally release it. We just keep changing every little thing until its final release day to give the songs away to Chris.
Yeah, I think our writing process is actually quite indicative of the blend of genres of the band itself. Because I am obviously very influenced by extremely heavy music, very technical, Meshuggah, Periphery, Tesseract, all this sort of stuff, that often gets so complicated it borders on, well, it doesn't border on, it's just niche, it's just plain niche. And Dan has a lot of pop influence, and you can really hear that in the music because I do all of the instrumentals and all the music, and it's really crazy and it's a little bit crackhead sounding. And then Dan comes in and brings these sweet pop melodies on the top. And so you get to see that our writing process is almost like broken in two with two different genres in mind, and then kind of just haphazardly like glued together, and then it creates these harmonious pieces. And our songwriting elevated massively once Dan started to contribute more to the songwriting, as you said, about halfway through Prophecy. Because we had about six songs we were planning on releasing, and then as soon as we started writing with Dan, we're like, scrap that. We're going to write some more. And that ended up being a really great decision. And that's another key difference with The Place I Cannot Find. I think vocally, it's just a heap more mature if you listen to it. And that's because we had an actual singer working on the melodies.
Well, actually, that was one area I was going to go to with a question because, like, you can definitely hear significant growth in Einstein's music comparing with Prophecy. But I think the biggest standout definitely is the vocals. Like, it sounds even yourself, Dan, from the release prior, The Place I Cannot Find, there's a progression and a maturity in the vocals. Is that something that you found occurred naturally, or is there something that you've been doing to actively develop your voice?
Well, thank you, thank you for that. Like when I first joined Ironstone, I never ever thought about having like a singing lesson. I thought like a singing lesson was like, no, just in school or something. Like I was like, oh no, I don't. I already know how to sing. Like it's all right. And then when I joined Ironstone, they were like, hey, what are your thoughts on singing lessons? And I was like, oh, I've never had one. I've never had a thought about it. And they were like, oh, like, would you be open for it? So I was like, yeah, I was totally open for it, and had plenty of them over COVID, and it definitely is the biggest thing that has helped me in singing. Crazy that. That so yeah, definitely can't thank my singing teacher enough, and also it just gave me the confidence to be one a better singer and also a better frontman as well. I wasn't stressing about if I'm going to hit this note or if I should belt it or if I should keep it quiet, and then so it's just I don't have to stress anymore, and I think yeah, it's definitely shown on the recording, and also us live as well. It's helped us out so much.
The singing lessons are really intimidating too. Like, I mean, lessons in general are intimidating, but what people don't think about in terms of singing lessons compared to an instrument is that the teacher can pick up the instrument and show you where to put your fingers, how to hold drumsticks, and demonstrate to you. But that singing is feeling, and it takes a while, right, to lock into that. So I feel like a lot of singers shy away from it because it can be hard to understand at first. And so you just go, well, I don't need the singing lessons because it doesn't make sense to me. I can't understand that. I don't know what the head voice is, and I don't know what this, so yeah, no, I think that's really cool that you just dove into it and went for it, and it's obviously benefited the band.
Yeah, and like you're definitely right with the with when you learn an instrument is they can physically show you how to play a chord. They can physically show you what to hit on the drums and all that. But like singing, especially me, I'm not sure for other people out there, but I'm a very doubtful in myself. Like especially like through COVID, it was all over computer. So we were sort of, if we were doing a run or something, the teacher would be like, perfect, that is absolute perfect. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I did that right. Like, I'm not too sure. And he's like, no, trust me, you did it. I'm like, I don't know. But then over time, I would practice it more, and I'd be like, actually, I think I am doing that right. I think I've got it right.
Yeah, you've got to really trust in yourself, don't you?
Yeah, it's just really, really hard. But I'm so grateful for that.
And you guys share vocal responsibilities too, right? So Ed, you get behind the mic too.
Yeah, we even actually did a couple of lessons together with singing coaches, and Dan's absolutely right when he says that it can be more difficult because of the subjectivity of like your own individual anatomy. Everyone's vocal cords are different, and so what one person describes as one sensation could be totally different for another person. Different cues. Some people respond really well to certain things like, feel it in your chest or pretend you're a dog barking, whereas someone else might want to relax more. Some people like to put aggression into it. For other people, it injures them. And Dan and I have experienced that also firsthand with sharing the responsibility with screaming. Like, how would I even describe it? How we approach vocals altogether is totally, totally different. And so we're getting very, very good and valid advice, but it applies totally differently to the two of us. And that's been really interesting to watch. And the drummer sings as well. So it's been really interesting to see how like we've all developed vocally over the course of the EP and doing lessons and just practicing.
Yeah, it's an instrument in itself, and I think that gets disregarded a lot of the time. In terms of lyrics then, do you guys share lyric writing as well?
Yeah, so we share lyrics as well. I'm not very smart with big words. I'm sort of on the melody side of the writing, but we also try and figure out what works cadence-wise with a line, and then we figure out what cadence works, and we're like, how many words we sort of want roughly. Then we go, all right, what's a big word? Like, and I go, Ed, what's a word that feels like this? And then that's where the big words come from.
I think when we write vocals, Dan and I work very, very closely together, and there's a lot of sharing responsibilities. But I think mainly I'm very much a walking dictionary and thesaurus. So I write a lot of the lyrics because I've got a very clear idea of what I want the song to be about, the feelings I want to encapsulate. And because our stuff's kind of progressive and intellectual, I feel somewhat obligated to use these like bigger words and be a little bit more thoughtful or Shakespearean with my, formulation of what I want to say. But when it comes to melodies, often by the time I've done the music and the lyrics, I just have no idea what to do. And then Dan just comes in with something that's super catchy and it makes the song. Because without the melodies that Dan writes, the songs would just be monotonous and vaguely terrifying. But that's how we work together. And there's a lot of tit for tat, obviously. Dan has come up with killer lyrics. I've come up with great melodies. But I think by and large, what Dan says is accurate. Yeah. He gets a feel going and he says, I need 3 words instead of 2 words. And I come up with some big giant 18-syllable thing that we can slot right in there. And then it just works perfectly.
You come up with what sounds cool and he brings the soul.
Yeah, that's essentially it. That's
perfect.
Yeah, Dan's like the feeling of the band. He's the vibe, and I like kind of like the logistics guy.
The technical guy.
Yeah.
I'm the guy with a smile.
Are the lyrics relatively introspective, or are you guys more storytellers?
Oh, that's a great question.
That is.
I'd say it's pretty 50-50 on that aspect. We do like to tell stories that relate to us as the underlying aspect of the song, but we also can't just say, I had a bad day today. like we need to make it sound interesting, and I think Ed does a really good job at not making it sound like I had a bad day today.
Yeah, I think we tell introspective stories, if that makes any sense. I prefer not to communicate in a really literal sense. I like to be really cryptic, and I like to draw parallels and to compare things to other things, which I think is just, that's just kind of interesting storytelling and like art. But we write about, especially in the place I cannot find, that's actually another really big difference. We started writing about a lot more vulnerable stuff, a lot more personal stuff, but we'll use interesting like stories that aren't necessarily true or sort of sensationalized in order to exemplify the introspective point, if that makes any sense. Like in Staring at the Sun, the song sings about how the protagonist of the song, it is like a story, really. The protagonist of the song willingly stares into the sun to blind himself so he doesn't have to, be subject to the judgment of everybody else. It almost has a bit of like a biblical sort of sound to it. Obviously, none of us have actually attempted to deliberately blind ourselves to get out of being bullied. But it's like kind of like a
Oh, speak for yourself there, Ed.
but it's like a very dramatic, melodramatic parallel we draw because metal has to be dramatic. There's a lot of theatrics to it, and I think recently, especially in this release, we've been really like getting right up into that sort of style and really like reveling in that melodrama.
And the other thing about making it sort of vague, I suppose, is that you're giving your listeners the opportunity to insert their own experiences into those songs as well.
We didn't think about that when writing and releasing these songs, but hearing the feedback from the fans saying, "Oh, this song is so close to me because of this reason," and we're like, "Wow, never thought about it that way," but we're glad that we can help you in that way. And then, yeah, same thing on another person. It's just we wrote it for this reason and this reason only, and then other people have taken it their own ways, and it's blown our minds just to see how sort of relatable these songs are in a strange way, I guess.
Music is awesome like that, and I think like as musicians, we strive to write songs for us, and then they inadvertently become other people's property once you release it, and that's so cool to watch and see how other people do relate to it. It makes it all worth it, I think.
Definitely is.
So did the songs on the EP have a theme of any description, or were they sort of standalone songs that tell their own story?
Okay. When I started with Mr. Struggle, which would have been the first one that was written, also the first one that was released, I didn't really have any particular intention of writing an EP with a particular theme. But because the songs were written in relatively close proximity to one another, and because that process sort of got ramped up and sped up at the end, I feel like it all happened at a similar enough time in my life that it has encapsulated sort of like an era of at least my and Dan's and all the people involved. It captured the band's personality within the era within which it was written. And so a lot of the songs are very introspective. A lot of them are about mental struggles. I hate to bring up COVID, but it did have an effect. A lot of these songs are very introspective. They're a little bit darker. They're more personal. There are a lot of them are about mental issues, and it's sort of self-change and growth. It kind of feels cheesy to say that, but I think that there is an overarching theme somewhere. I don't know how far to reach and try desperately to connect pieces that don't go together, but I don't think the songs are all just standalone, totally incongruent, nothing to do with one another. I think it's somewhere in between being a beautifully planned concept EP and just a totally random, haphazard compilation. I think the stuff does relate, but that wasn't really the intention. It just accidentally happened.
You say you don't want to talk about COVID, but I think we're getting to this point now post COVID that we're starting to see a lot of artists, using their art, their music as therapy of what we've all gone through. Like I'm starting to see that theme in a lot of the releases that have come out in the last 6 months. You can see that people are using it to digest what we've all gone through. What I have been asking my recent interviewees is that, we've talked over and over now because of COVID, all the cancelled tours, all the things we could and couldn't do. But what are some of the positive things that may have occurred for the band during COVID, during their lockdowns?
The place I couldn't find, probably. Probably was a good thing that came out of it. Well, I'm not too sure about the other guys, but like me personally, my life didn't change too much through COVID, just because I was I was working at a hardware store, and we were still open all through COVID. So like, thankfully for me, nothing too changed for my life personally.
You were supplying all the people that were like renovating their homes because they couldn't fucking go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But for the band, I think it gave us the opportunity to sit down and really like see where we can go as a band, what direction we want to go, sort of have these like not deeper conversations, but sort of like we had the chance to have these conversations to direct where we want to go in the future. Because if COVID didn't happen, then we would have been playing show after show after show for Prophecy, and we wouldn't have had the chance to sort of sit down and see what we want to do. But we actually got the chance to do this and have the chat about it, and we all agree on the way we are going.
The thing I've noticed as well is that a lot of bands that are building momentum like you guys, a lot of those bands folded during COVID because it was too hard. It was all too hard, and it really highlighted who was serious about their music and their craft and who wasn't. So props to you guys for making it through to the other side. Stronger than ever by the sounds of it too.
Yeah, I think COVID really caused a real amount of urgency, at least for me. The effects of COVID were kind of a relative thing. They were different for everyone else, but for me, it happened just after I turned 18, like pretty much just after. And then, so didn't really have 18, didn't really have 19, and it all started to subside right before 20. And so I felt like a really significant chunk of my life had just been like totally erased in an unprecedented way. And it's like, I'm never going to get that back. And I'm never going to be able to predict when that's going to happen again, if it's going to happen again. And so for me, it instilled this real sense of urgency and this real sort of self-reflection of like, if I'm going to lose all of this time on the other side, I want to make sure that I come out absolutely ready to go. And so I don't think anything has made me more resolute about the pursuit of a music career than the COVID thing. And I don't think anything made me want to write music that was more emotionally relevant and brooding. Because when we were writing Prophecy, we wanted, cool songs that were cool, and we were thinking of cool concepts, and they're great songs. We still love them. We're still very proud, especially considering that most of the band was 17 when it was released. But yeah, I think the COVID just caused like this mass urgency, and I just like kind of woke up and went, don't take anything for granted, because it could literally all just be snatched off you. It doesn't even have to be like a personal tragic event. Something totally unprecedented could happen, and you're just sitting inside on your computer for 2 years.
Which song is your favorite off this new EP and why?
Mine's some people say that like you can't really have a favorite, but I'm sorry, the place I cannot find. It's Who Scares Who. I can't tell you why, because I don't know why. There's just something about that song that just pulls on my heartstrings like no other song, and every time I hear it, it's like I'm just taken on the same journey every single time. And I don't know what we put in it because we're the ones that wrote it, but it is, I just absolutely love that song.
What about you, Ed?
It's a little tricky.
You still thinking?
I'm thinking pretty hard. I'm trying to justify my answer as well as I can. I think the song, it's a very eclectic release. And so all the songs encapsulate a sort of different feel and mood. And so I could feel myself drifting towards any song at any given time, depending on how I feel. I think I really enjoy To Be Like You. I think that song's very energetic. It's interesting. It's very odd. And it got thrown together at the absolute last minute. It wasn't going to make the EP, but we're like, oh, I'm not happy. I want to write another song. We wrote it super quick. We just slapped it on there and went, God, this song's a mess. And then it came out and we're like, holy shit, this is really good. I enjoy like the energeticness, and I like how it like sort of flows into that more epic end, and then there's a lot of like hate and resentment in the start, and then it resolves nicely at the end. So I'd say musically To Be Like You, but lyrically I can't go past Staring at the Sun. Yeah, those lyrics hit pretty hard. I really enjoy the idea of how stupid it is to really cut your nose off to spite your face and blind yourself so other people don't look at you when it's your own life to live. And if you're so fearful of judgment, you're going to act in a cowardly way and be judged, which is kind of ironic and terrible. So you've got to, step out of your shell and just be who you are. Like that line in it, spent half my life locked in a cage, wishing I was someone else. The time goes and you don't get it back. And so if you spend all that time thinking about other people, it's like you're just decaying your own life, really, to no avail. So I think lyrically, I'm going to say Staring at the Sun. Sorry, that was a very long answer.
I think that is a theme that so many people can relate to, and if they're not going through it actively, they've been through it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the EP launch that happened in October at Stay Gold. Great venue. How did the night go? What were the highlights?
It was probably one of our best shows. We were absolutely blown away with the outcome, just the amount of people that came. To be honest, we really didn't expect too much, but we were absolutely blown away with the people that did come and all the bands that we played with, North Road, Priorities, and Druid.
Very solid lineup.
Yeah, we were extremely happy with the lineup.
I heard there were some lighthearted moments.
Oh, it's an Ironstone show. There's always going to be.
Was there a little bit of a throw to one of the film clips?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there was. Yeah, we played we played a few songs from Prophecy at the start, and then we just thought it'd be a good idea just to play the EP front to back, just for one time, I guess. And yeah, so we played Who Scares Who, and then there's a little bit of an outro on Who Scares Who. So I walked off stage, and then Shiny Things started straight away, and I came back on dressed in my Shiny Things suit, and I think I had a ball. I loved it. I lost my glasses, but it was a really good time.
If that's all you've lost at a show, you didn't rock hard enough, Dan. You still had your shoes on, you still had your clothes on. Like, what's going on?
I was headbanging pretty hard on stage, and I did this one headbang, came down, the sunglasses came halfway off, and as I came back up, they just came fully off, and I was like, oh.
Up in the rafters.
Yeah, not getting them back.
So are there any plans for you guys to take Ironstone on the road in 2023, get out of Victoria?
There's no plans at the moment. Nothing set in stone, but it's definitely a hope and dream for us and hopefully other people in other states as well.
If anyone's listening in other states, their offer is open there.
Hit us up and we'll come around.
So are you guys writing new material at the moment, or is your focus still on sort of gigging and promoting this EP?
Yeah, focus is still pretty hard on playing, practicing, and promo. But we definitely have spoken about need to get back into writing straight away, which will definitely be the next thing. Probably in the next week, I think we'll start writing.
I was going to say I'm already on it. I'm a few songs in. I'm always ahead. I know exactly what we're doing.
Oh, geez, all right. I need to catch up.
You heard it here first, Dan.
All right, yeah. All right, news to everyone else. We are writing.
Oh, just come see me next time you need some more info on your own band.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
What are your ultimate goals for Ironstone? So are there any festivals or particular bands that are on your wish list, like bands to support that are on your wish list?
I think Ed and I will have very different bands we'd like to play with here, just because of the whole he's influenced by tech metal, like these bands, and I'm influenced by pop. So I think a great artist to tour with would be like Britney Spears, just because it would be so strange. Like, why would Ironstone tour with Britney Spears?
I feel like I was reading your mind. I was about to say Britney, and look what you did. I'm reading your mind.
I think Britney was just the obvious one for Ironstone, don't you think?
I've been thinking it for a while now, actually. What about you, Ed?
Oh, in terms of naming individual bands, God, we'd be grateful to play with anyone. Really, I'd just be super stoked to be on any sort of festival lineup, even if it was the absolute opening spot. And I could name bands like Tesseract and Periphery and Meshuggah, and of course it's pretty obvious given our influences. But I think for Ironstone, in my mind at least, the goal is to create art that we feel is like socially and culturally relevant and also encapsulates the mood of the band, whilst also being something that is somewhat new or interesting in a musical sense. I think I really aspire to play with these big bands, but I feel that there are maybe goals that can be set that are a little bit more fulfilling on an individual artist level, and that maybe are a little bit more realistic because they're not necessarily dependent on all the variables that go into getting onto these shows. It can be a real logistical nightmare. Sometimes bands who are deserving don't get on, stuff happens, bands fall apart. But I think the sort of goal I have is just to write really, really good music, and also with the band's style to let that evolve and to really create something that's kind of transcendent. It doesn't get old and it doesn't kind of like die. I want to create something that's yeah, not time fixed. I'm not sure if that sounds maybe a little bit abstract, but that's kind of my goal. I'm super happy for all the support and all the people we meet along the way, but I think it's also important to think about, you know, the more sort of long-term attainable goals as well.
Good answer.
So are you telling me you don't think a tour with Britney Spears is realistic?
No, a tour with Britney Spears would be fantastic.
Maybe not even a tour, just a collab. That'd be
I'll
good.
call her up after this and see what we can do. But yeah, no promises, all right?
Alrighty, I usually like to wrap up with a silly question or a bit of a fun question. Dan, you've had a heads up on this one, so you've had time to think. If you could sell any obscure item of merch, no matter how unrealistic or out there, what would you choose?
I'll give you time to think because I said Converses. I reckon it'd be absolutely unreal to have an Ironstone Converse shoe.
That's not stupid at all. That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was a great idea.
It's great, and I would sign up, make it happen. I want a pair.
I'll call Brittany, then I'll call Converse, and then we'll hook something up.
It's funny. You kind of stole my one because I was thinking like, oh, I don't know, maybe like, some sort of like limited edition leather jacket. But that's not unrealistic. That's something that you could absolutely do if you had the following do that.
Well, if you go Converse, you can go socks or something.
God, what's like an interesting Ironstone item? I feel like
Fingerless gloves or something?
Yeah, I feel like given that the music's so kind of that we write such kind of grandiose, complex stuff that it needs to be a really mundane item, just to really let the irony sink in. Like what? Like a
A spoon set. Cutlery drawer.
Tea towel.
like a toaster? A toaster, and when the bread comes up, there's like just like Dan screaming for a little bit, so you're like the toast is there, and then when it comes up, it's like when the toast comes up or something like that for a second. That'd be really cool. I'd buy that. I'm not sure, just anything. Oh, maybe a genetically modified dog that's got our logo in the coat, like on the back of it. It's got like the Ironstone logo on the coat of the dog. Yeah, genetically engineered pet. That's my answer.
Oh, nice. You want to brand dogs now?
Look, as someone who works also in the animal care industry, I'm not sure how
Oh, that's right.
how ethical I think that is, but it is pretty amazing, and you would make a killing. You would make a killing because people love their strange animal coat colors and whatnot. I was sort of hoping that we might consider a line of Ironstone member blow up dolls, but
Oh,
That could be lucrative.
look, planting seeds, just planting seeds.
that's on the list.
Alrighty, we're starting to run out of time. So, do you have any shows to plug? What's on the immediate horizon for you guys?
Yeah, so we have a show at Stay Gold on Friday the 9th of December with Orpheus Omega. Come in early because we're up first, and it's going to be one hell of a night.
Hell yeah. Alrighty, well, The Place I Cannot Find is out now on all of the listening platforms. Go check it out. Better yet, buy yourself a copy, support the lads so that they can eat food and stuff, and get to a live show and see the guys in action. Thanks for talking to me today, Dan and Ed. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you.
Peace out.